verse 18. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. May our hearts and minds be inspired by this wisdom.
Thanks be to God.
And our gospel lesson is also from the Gospel of Matthew. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are an obstacle to me. You are thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." This is the good news.
Praise be to you, O Christ.
So you can already tell how excited I am to be back worshiping with you all. It's kind of a bit of a weird feeling, I have to admit. It feels in so many ways like May was just yesterday. In so many ways it feels like it's been years, both at the same time. But today, weird is wonderful because it is just great to be back to exploring our favorite book together again. And I do have to admit, I spent a decent amount of time thinking about this very moment. A sabbatical is quite a significant event in the ministry life of a pastor. As I collected experience after experience, inspiration upon inspiration, as God kept raining blessings and reflections and prayers and epiphanies and new perspectives and broad connections I'd never noticed, the Spirit kept showering me with all of this great stuff. I kept going back in my mind to this day, to this moment. Sabbatical is so significant. What topic, what focus, what subject is significant enough to match, to equal the significance of this day? Because I will say, this is not just another sermon for me. Sabbatical is a time for a pastor to reestablish a rhythm of holy living within professional ministry. That means it's a time to strip away any and all unhealthy and life-denying behaviors and routines that emerge from the stress and anxiety of wanting to help in so many more ways than anyone ever possibly or physically could. Because any human being will develop unhealthy and life-denying behaviors and routines doing this job, because pastors are human, and the nature of the job is a plentiful harvest and few laborers. And the nature of the pastor is to have a heart to care, a heart that breaks with every of the always many ministry tasks that I can't personally attend to. So I spent 12 weeks focusing, reflecting, praying on how to do this job, how to be a professional minister, a paid servant of Christ, a pastor in a holy way. I spent every day talking to Christ and listening to the Spirit guiding me in that question. How do I wear the yoke Christ made just for me when God formed me in the depths? I did so much reflecting that my sense of what it means to be a pastor, to live this life, is so solid. And in so many ways discreetly different from when I left you. So as I sit before you today, this is not just another sermon for me. I have been born again. I have been born anew. I have been resurrected in a distinct and particular way. So I almost feel like today as I worship with you, it's almost like entering my second call to professional ministry. It's almost like my first sermon all over again. So how do I match the intensity of this occasion for me? I preach about a lot of intense stuff, but what holds the weight appropriate for this place and sacred time? So I put a lot of thought into my words for today. And as many sabbaticaling pastors before me, I'm sure, I lean toward the bigger and broader questions. And of course, they always turn out to be the simplest questions, such as, why are we here? What is the church for? What is the point of all of this? Why are you here? What uniting motivation brings us together? Why do we, very different people, different ages, different lifestyles, different ideas about politics and, heaven forbid, football teams, why are we here together on Sundays? And more than that, why do we consistently challenge each other to love one another like family? What are we here for? If we take it down to a common denominator, we are all here because we want to transform the world. We are here because we all want to transform the world. We are the one with eyes to see evil, injustice, oppression. We are the ones with hearts that break for the poor and the hurting. We are the ones who believe it can be better. We are the ones blessed with hope and faith that change is possible. We are the ones who have heard the call to participate in that change, in the transformation of the world. And we believe that Christ has shown us the way to do that. We are here to transform the world. So, if you can buy me on that one, if you do in fact see evil and injustice, if your heart breaks for the hurting and you believe it can be better, if you are a person of hope and faith, called to participate by walking the Jesus way, because you do in fact want to transform the world, if you are with me on that, then my momentous words for you today are, if you want to transform the world, you must be transformed. That is how it works. If you want the world to be transformed, you be transformed, and you go out and transform the world. One person, one healing, one injustice at a time. That's how it works. Who says? Our favorite book says. That is our history, that is our heritage, it's how it works. God comes along, encounters a human, and that ordinary person goes on to live an extraordinary life. From Abraham, Jacob, Joseph, to Moses and David. Then Jesus comes along and he transforms people. He takes them from fishermen to fishers of men. And then the Holy Spirit comes along after that, changing people like Paul, who goes on to change the world. One disciple, one miracle, one letter, one prison stay at a time. That is the story of our story. God transforming ordinary people to transform the world in extraordinary ways. And of course, our story is rich and diverse. As the back of your bulletin reminds you, God does not do one size fits all. That's why we have so many churches. One of the larger ways we divide up our Christian churches is along the lines of how this process of God transforming you works. The evangelical story is that it happens all at once, in a really big way. Boom! God slaps you with a lightning bolt. And that story is in our Bible, right? It is the story of... You're letting your pastor down. It is the story of lightning bolt, somebody walking along the road in Damascus, a lightning bolt comes and hits him. Oh my goodness, we're going to be preaching. I really have gone astray. I know I don't like Paul, but this is, okay, we're on tape here. This is the story of Paul, who is credited with writing most of our Christ story in the Bible. That was Paul who did that. Paul grew up as Saul, a persecutor of Christians. And then one day on the road to Damascus, struck from the sky he was. And that ordinary persecutor was transformed. And he subsequently transformed the world for countless believers. And still does today. Just think about how many people Paul still inspires with his words. For these Christians, transformation is so profound, they will tell you the day that they were saved. Because being born again was so pivotal and momentous. But our church lives in a different tradition. The story of this tradition is also told in our favorite book many times. Today our focus scriptures show us Peter, also someone who received a new name with his transformation. But if you notice, just 5 verses after that transformation, Jesus calls Peter Satan. Peter's story is our reformed story. Peter didn't get it all at once. And that's okay. That didn't mean Jesus wasn't going to use Peter to transform the world. Clearly that was Jesus' intent. Jesus did use Peter to transform the world. But Peter's story shows us gradual transformation. Peter's story gives us hope for continuous transformation. This is transformation along the lines of Marion Graham, if any of you were fortunate to know her. Marion Graham appeared the most faithful Christian you could find, and yet she always claimed she wasn't yet a Christian. That's because she fervently believed in continual transformation, and she would get there on the other side. Our Reformed faith hopes and believes that we can continue anywhere and everywhere along the journey of life to transform more into the being of Christ, that we can continue always to grow closer to the divine, to be resurrected again and again, more fully into Christ's light and love. But in both cases, the evangelical way or the Reformed way, the process starts the same. You are transformed so that you can go out and transform the world. That's the whole basis and emphasis of our Great Commission. Go out and make disciples. Got a secret for you. No one wants to go out. I get that. No one wants to go out until you are transformed by something so awesome and wonderful you can't not go and tell. That's how it works. So if it's gonna work, if we come here together to transform the world, if that's gonna work, we need to be transformed. And maybe more important and profound, we need to recognize we have been transformed. And we need to talk about it. When was the last time you were transformed? Have you been transformed by Christ? Have you ever even thought about that question? Because it's an important question. It's one of those questions Peter is referring to when he says, always be ready to give an explanation to anyone who asks for the reason for your hope. Have you been transformed by Christ? Ever? Even once? Slowly or in a little way? Maybe it was all the way back when you were 5 years old and this really old Sunday school teacher said something beautiful to you. Maybe it was way back in a youth group. It doesn't matter how long ago it was or if it was yesterday. Have you been transformed by Christ? If your answer is no, please come and see me because I'd love to give your mother a call and talk to her about your teenage years. But if your answer is yes, if you can say, yes, I have been transformed by Christ, whether it was yesterday or 77 years ago, if you have been transformed, hang your hat on that. You want to transform the world? I know you do, because you are here today. The first step is to be transformed. So if you can say, yes, I have been transformed by Christ, give thanks to God every single day for that fact. Pray about it. Remember it. Meditate on it. Give it the time and weight in your day equal to the weight it holds in your life and your higher goals and purposes. Remember that story and thank God for that story and talk about that story. That's the last piece. Go and tell, to share, to take the experience you have had with Christ and turn it into an encounter with another human. An encounter that Christ says has the potential to change the world. Not through your actions or your power, but through something totally above and beyond you. You take the steps with the faith you've been given as a blessing. Recognize your transformation and go and tell. Christ will do the rest. Christ will make transformation a reality. And I know you believe that because you're sitting here today. Go and tell your transformation story. Don't be embarrassed if it's an old story. Maybe God is just waiting to give you a new one because you need to tell the one you already have. Again or for the first time. That seems to be how it works with me. The more stories I tell, the more stories God gives me to share. I know you all don't believe it, but really, I'm a quiet, shy person who does not naturally like to talk about my stories. And I never thought I could sit up here in front of a group of people like you. But Christ transformed me. I tried. Shaking and nervous as could be, and I saw people draw closer to Christ, and I was transformed. And now I have a love for sharing like this. I never could have imagined doing this, sharing my transformation story, has given me, literally in every way, a new life. Doing this has transformed me. I'll share that. God continues to transform me. I have been transformed in so many ways over the last 12 weeks. I'm so excited to get opportunities to tell you about it, but even more, I am excited to get opportunities to hear about your stories. So don't be surprised if you find me asking you about your transformation story. So always be ready to give an explanation to anyone who asks you for a reason for your hope. This is the time of year that we cannot escape the reminders of transformation all around us. The cool breezes in the evening, the changing colors of the landscapes, the leaves that are somehow already on the ground. Look and have eyes to see. Transformation is everywhere. Transformation is happening all around and even inside. So go and tell that transformation may take root, because the problems in our world are big. They are so big, they can seem frighteningly incapacitating. But the world can be transformed. Our God is an awesome God. And our stories, our history, our heritage shows us that we can play a part. Transforming the world begins by being transformed, letting Christ change you, resurrect you into the love and light and life of Christ. Transforming the world happens one person at a time. So share your story. People will be changed. You may not get the blessing of seeing all the results. The best ministers never do. But God, Christ, the Holy Spirit will use your work. The world will be transformed. I know you believe that, and I know you believe you can be a part of it. That is why you are here. Amen.